Okay, the next video in chapter 4 is about closing entries, and this might be the last video because the rest of it, well, I think it's really important. It's really just something you should be able to read on your own because it just shows the entire accounting cycle from start to finish. I highly recommend reading it, but we'll get into this first. So the closing entries. So after we've created our financial statements, which we did in the last video, and after we've had all the journal entries, made all our adjustments, and created some financial statements, we need to start over for the next year because these statements, the income statement, statement of retained earnings, and those account types are ones that are started from scratch every single year. We have to close those so we can start over from zero. So the closing process, so the 4 steps in the closing process. All right, the first step in the closing process is to close all revenue accounts, and we close everything to a special account called income summary. This income summary account is used only for the closing process. It starts with a 0 balance and it should end with a 0 balance if we've done everything correctly. So I do have some T accounts out here to kind of help us, to see what what it looks like beforehand. Financial statements, fees earned. Sorry, I forgot to put the beginning balance in this one, 16,840. Okay. All right. So now step 1 says, and I have it typed out here. Step 1 says close all revenue accounts to a special account called income summary. Now, when I say close, that means I want them to be 0. So if I go back to my adjusted trial balance, I can see that the balance in my revenues accounts, fees earned and rent revenue are my 2 revenue accounts, that the balance in both of those, one of them is 16,840 is my fees earned balance, and $120 is my rent revenue. But more importantly, I see the balance as a credit balance. Well, in order to make those 0, in order to make those a 0 balance, I need to debit them for the amounts that are in them. So my journal entry is quite simply like it sounds. I'm going to debit fees earned, and I'm going to debit rent revenue for the amounts that are in their accounts. Now, I could see these also, by the way, on the financial statements. It's the amounts here. Okay, it's just I'm showing the worksheet because I want to show you that it's a credit balance so that you know that we're debiting the account because we need to close them. And as it specifically says, close all revenue accounts to income summary. Income summary is just a temporary account we only use for closing. It's kind of like a check account to make sure, not like a checking account, but like a check digit account to make sure that we have closed everything there properly. And this one, we're going to just add these 2 together because I know I need a credit for all of it. So I'm closing all the revenues to the income summary account. Now notice it had a 0 balance to begin with. I just credited it for 16,960. So now that's the balance after that journal entry. So that's step 1 is done. Okay, so just so we're clear and color code this real quick. This is step 1. This was from step 1. And this is all step 1. Step 2 says close all expense accounts to a special account called income summary. So I need to close all my expense accounts. Now I have a lot of them. I have 7 of them here, and all of them have a debit balance in them. So I need to credit all of them for those amounts. So I need to credit wages expense for $45.25. I need to credit supplies expense for $2,040. I need to credit rent expense for $1,600. I do have to do those all individually. Now, again, Excel will save me here from a lot of typing and a lot of extra work, and also make sure that I get all my numbers right. I'm going to close them all to income summary, and since I'm going to credit them all, that means I'm going to debit income summary for the total. So I'll get that total in a second. Now I'll just put it there. And then I'm going to go find all my expenses, wages expense, and see here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, should get them all, miscellaneous expense. I'm going to credit every single one of them for the amounts that are on the adjusted trial balance. If you notice, I'm taking it from the adjusted trial balance. And then I'm going to debit income summary for the total of them all. Now, I want you to notice something. I didn't put a T account out here for expenses because I would have had to put 7 additional ones out here. I didn't want to do that many of them. I felt it would make it kind of busy out there. So I didn't do that, but do notice still, even though that's the case, that I would have, if I had them over here, every single one would have a 0 balance in it after this transaction. Now I did debit income summary for $98.55. So step 3, so this is all step 2. Step 2 is done. It says close the income summary. Summary is what it says right now, but we'll say summary account to retained earnings. So to close this account, I now have to find the balance in this account. To find the balance, I need to add and subtract depending on debits or credits. Well, my credits are larger, so I know I'm going to have a credit balance. So I can take my credits minus my debits, end up with a credit balance of 7105. Notice that is exactly, and it should be, what my net income is, because this is all my revenues, this is all my expenses, and my income statement by definition is revenue minus expenses. So it is correctly exactly the same as what it should be, which is 7,105. So I can close that. It is a credit balance and a debit income summary. I need a debit income summary for 7105. And I need a credit retained earnings. Earnings for 7105. Now notice after this, after I've done this, 70, oops, on the side, I've debited this for 7105. Now the balance in here is going to be 0. That minus that should be 0 correctly. Retained earnings started with a 0 balance, but I just credited it for 7105. I realize I referenced that now. So there we go. 7105. So that's step 3. I've closed the account. Close the income summary account to the retained earnings. Now, final step. I forgot to highlight that for the fees earned part that I did. That would be step 1. So it would be this color here. Yeah. Final step, step 4, says close dividends to the retained earnings. So we need to close our dividends to retained earnings. Dividends has a debit balance, so I need to credit the account. So I'm going to debit retained earnings and credit dividends for 4,000. Because that's the balance. I just took that balance, by the way, from the worksheet, from the adjusted trial balance. I just had it over there on the T account. It's right here. It's a debit balance of $4,000. So now after this, as it should be 0. It should be 0 balance. And this one we'll highlight as yellow. So we'll go yellow again. And yellow here for the debit for $4,000. Now after this, my balance in the retained earnings account should be my ending balance in retained earnings, which is 7,100 minus 7,105. And my balance is 3,105, which is exactly what I showed over here in my statement of retained earnings. Another way to think about these 4 entries is effectively with the idea behind these 4 entries is to journalize the statement of retained earnings. Because we journalize the net income. Now we do that in 2 entries by closing all the revenues and the expenses into an account. Actually 3. Close all the revenues and expenses into the income summary account. And then we close the income summary account over into retained earnings. So that's my addition to retained earnings. So this part right here is steps 1 through 3 on your closing process. And this right here is step 4, closing the dividends. And that's how it nets my retained earnings into 3,105. If you've done this correctly, your ending balance, your retained earnings, well, your ending balance and your revenues and expenses should be 0 and dividends should be 0. Your income summary should be 0 because it starts and ends with 0. But your retained earnings should end with a balance that matches up to your statement of retained earnings. And I think that's it for the closing entries.